Hi, have you ever come across something on Instagram, Pinterest, Etsy and just thought, I have to make that? Well, that's how I felt when I saw this pattern by Sewing Therapy. And when I found this blue tablecloth at a garage sale, I knew I had to make it in this. This top has a beautiful white color, kind of reminiscent of a sailor uniform. The sleeves are wide and ballooned. It has nice cuffs and an optional tie at the waist. And if you want to, it's also a dress. I'm just pulling up the tutorial for the shirt on my computer. I also have the written instructions over here. And it seems like I have to start by making the collar. I've already cut and prepared all of my pieces last night, so it's ready to go. This fabric is actually checkered a little bit in different textures when you look at it in different light. It's quite a heavy fabric, so I'm not going to be interfacing any of the pieces. I think they're going to be able to hold the shape on their own. But as soon as I make the color, I think it's going to be really clear if that can stand on its own. I almost forgot, but I'm going to be stay stitching the neckline and the facing of both neck and back, just to make sure that it doesn't move when I add the color later. The pattern even says don't skip this step, and then I almost skipped it. I'm laying out my color pieces right sides together, and then I'm going to sew on the outside. In the tutorial, she's sewing up to a corner, placing a piece of thread in between the layers so that she can use that thread to pull at the corner on the right side and get that really sharp finish. My machine is sounding a little bit dry, so I'm going to try to give it some oil and see if that fixes that noise. Much better. Your machine really does need oil a lot more often than you'd think. I have this thread sitting at the corner, and if I just pull that, I accidentally clipped my thread. So that won't work on that corner. Let's see if it works on the other corner, if I'm more lucky there. I must have done it wrong because it's not working. Luckily, there are other ways to get a semi-sharp corner, so I'm just using this tweezer to get in there and push it out. There she is, the statement of this piece. The collar, I can already tell it's going to be cute. The ties at the waist in the design are optional, but I am opting in. Since the shirt is kind of tapering out at the bottom, I think it would be nice to have that tie to kind of cinch in the waist if you would like that look. And you can always just opt not to tie the ties if you'd like that wide look. So I'm going to add them. I think that is the right decision for me. Again, this design is really ready to be customized. So if you wanted to make it in something more of a flowy fabric and no ties, it would be a great summer top, a great top that would just flow and give a lot of space for the body and not have anything being restrictive. And that's why I love patterns like this, because it gives you options to create with the same pattern, but different kind of designs every time for different kind of purposes. For the ties, I have to do a lot of ironing before I can even sew. So I think I'm just going to listen to an audiobook while I do that. Right now I'm listening to Sabriel, and it's really nice to get lost in this fantasy world. The ties are done, and I'm going to be pinning them at the sides of the front bodice so that I can sew them in to the seam when I assemble the shirt. And I'm going to start by sewing the shoulder seam. I'm going to finish these edges by serging them together, even though my serger has has a white thread. I know some people change it out when they have a darker garment they're working on. Let me know if that's you, but right now I only have white thread. So I'm going to live with the fact that there's going to be visible serging stitches on the inside. Now that the shoulder seams are done, you can kind of see the silhouette starting to form. And the collar, which is going to be all the way at the V like this. And then of course, the big sleeves. Now before I start assembling the neckline, I'm actually going to remove the ties because they're really just in the way while I do this. And I can always go back and clip them again. So that's a funny thing that this pattern wants you to do. Clip the ties before even doing the sides of the shirt. So I'm going to pin the collar onto the neckline now, as well as onto the inside facing. And then all of that is going to be sewn in one go. That is a little bit exciting and fiddly because that is the most technical part of this pattern, I think. The tips of the collar are overlapping at the front, as they should, but there's something weird happening at the back here, where it's like, it's not really fitting right. Okay, I think the collar is in right this time, so I'm going to baste it all the way around before I can do the lining. So a basting stitch is basically just a stitch with a really long stitch length. It's only there to hold pieces of fabric together so that it's easier to assemble. The collar is basted in there, and now I'm going to add the facing. And this is what's going to just fold everything neatly away, hiding all of those raw edges. I'm very curious to see if I can get this over my head, because this opening is not very large. But I guess we'll have to see when it's done if I can get it over my big head. I'm going to draw a dot where my tip of the triangle is going to be, and it's going to be just below the collar right here, so they're nicely folded in. Something didn't go as planned at the back of the inner lining. I'm going to have a little bit of a fold right there because the lining didn't match the size of the neckline, but I think I'm okay with it. It's on the inside and everything else seems like it worked out great. I've just done an understitch all the way on the right side of the shirt just to keep that stitch and that collar in the right way so it doesn't pop up from the inside. Now I'm going to stitch the lining into the shirt. So here's the lining and the understitch you can see right there, just really close to the edge. You can also see my little bump right there. Adds character, let's say that. So now I'm going to stitch the lining to the inside of the shirt, and then the most complicated part is over. I just put a little label into the lining before I sew it in. I usually forget to add labels to my things, but they're just really cute and gives the inside a little surprise when you put it on. Okay, so this is where we're at. The collar is in. Look at that label, how cute that looks. The top stitching does make a little V right here, but I actually don't mind. I think that looks kind of cute. So far, so good, but maybe it's time to see if it actually fits over my head. It does fit over my head actually better now that the seam allowance is folded in. This design has these big sleeves, but they are 3/4, and I have long arms as it is, so 3/4 on me would probably be a long way up the arm, and that is not ideal. So I took my sleeve pattern piece and I just added about 12 centimeters right here to try to adjust for my arms being a lot longer. Now on top of this, I don't really like 3/4 sleeves, so adding these centimeters is also because I would like the sleeve to be more of a normal length. Now I'm not sure that 12 centimeters is enough to do that, but I will have to just try it and see when I put in the sleeve, is it long enough? The sleeves are pleated with knife pleats, which I don't really know what is, but I'm going to follow the video and hope that it guides me right. Matching notches and folding 2. Right. I'll do a basting stitch all around the sleeve cap just to make sure that these pleats are in there. Now I'm pinning the sleeve to the armhole opening. Okay. Sew and finish. Yes, ma'am. Can you tell I've been watching America's Sweethearts? I want to press these shoulder seams so bad, but I don't think that I should. The pattern doesn't say anything about pressing, and I think it's because they're pleats, and if you press pleats they kind of lose their volume, you know? So I'm going to leave them, but I really want to press them. Now we'll pin the side seams together, and what the I just found this huge slit in my fabric. I don't know what's there. That's so weird. I don't know how this could have happened, but I think I cut this sleeve from a piece of fabric that just wasn't big enough, because it's not big enough. I have to do a whole new sleeve. It's okay, it's okay. I'll unpick this sleeve, cut a new one, and do the pleats, and then we'll be back on track. It's not the end of the world. The piece of fabric I have left is barely enough for another sleeve, so I'm really cutting it close here, but I'm happy there's enough, because otherwise this whole project would just be a toss out. Crisis averted, the new sleeve is in, and now I can get back on track to assembling the body. The tie is hiding in here. It's going to be included in this side seam. We're nearing the finish line. Can you feel it? The bodice is assembled, and this is where we're at. I'm kind of obsessed. Looks so cute. I'm going to try it on. Look at these sleeves. Oh my god. The trigger kind of makes me look like a jester or something. I would need one of those hats and pointy shoes. Ooh. That doorbell was my mother who came to visit, and before she left, she did tell me that this looks a lot like this. And I honestly don't know how to feel about that. Before I was interrupted last night, I had just made it to the cuffs and the bottom hem of the shirt. These are the final pieces missing before the shirt is finished. I don't think it'll take very long, which means that you could actually make this shirt in just one day. It's that easy of a project. Life of a Showgirl came out today. If you know what I'm talking about, let me know what your favorite song is. Every time I listen to a new album, it doesn't matter from which artist, I always have to adjust to the new sound, the new songs, the new music. So I always need a couple of listens before I can actually form an opinion that's accurate. Because on my first listen there might be things that I don't like, but usually it's just because they're foreign. And when I listen to it again, I end up actually loving it. The cuffs are pressed and sewn at the sides. Now I'm going to overlap it like so, and then baste it together so it becomes a circle that I can attach straight to the sleeve. Now for the opening of the sleeve to actually match the circumference of the cuff, I need to do a gathering stitch. I don't have a gathering foot, so it's going to be the technique of 2 straight lines of sewing and then just pulling and gathering the fabric that way. I've sewn 2 parallel lines of stitching around the sleeve opening, and now I'm pulling the under thread to create a gathering effect. This fabric though is not very willing to be gathered. It's a little bit too heavy, I think. So it's kind of a rough job right now. Sewing is fun. Sewing is fun. Remember, sewing is fun. The cuff is now in the sleeve opening. I'm going to sew around all the way, finish the edges with my serger, and then we can turn it right side out. Here's the finished cuff. The little split is on the upper side of the arm. The instructions say to just finish the bottom of the shirt, roll it once, and do a top stitch. But since my serger thread is such a contrast color to the rest of the shirt, I'm going to do a double folded hem so that you can't catch a glimpse of that white thread at the bottom of the shirt. This project is now finished. This is the result. This is without the ties and it's very comfortable. But I like that I have the option to kind of cinch in the waist a little bit. Now it has a different look, but it's more form-fitting. And I like this too, it's just a matter of preference. Now, as you've probably seen, these sleeves are still 3/4 sleeves. So imagine if I didn't add 12 centimeters, this would be a t-shirt. So lesson learned, if I want to do this pattern again, I need to add even more length to the sleeve if I want it to go all the way to my wrist. Well, that's all this time. Thank you for following along, and let me know if you got inspired to make one of these shirts yourself. I know I feel like making a couple more.